Yo, what is up? Welcome back to the House of Gravy. Today, we're going to do a different type of video. Today is actually something that I've got a little bit more expertise on than the stuff we normally do. I mean, not that I really have a lot of expertise or whatever. Anyway, we're going to be talking about audio today. We're going to be talking more specifically about choosing the right microphone for the job as it pertains to audio for video, specifically more on a budget. Because audio video is a hobby that can get really expensive really quick. The good news is that it's never been more affordable to get quality audio on a budget than it is right now. So with that out of the way, I've got a whole list of topics to go down because I want to try to do this right this time. So first, you know what we do on this channel. You know what we do. I mean, if you normally watch this channel, if you're new, hi. But today we're going to be dabbing up a little bit of this Queen Mother Goji OG, straight from Greenleaf Medical in Richmond, Virginia, baby. Delivering gravy to my dough every month, baby. Every month, straight to my dough. I appreciate you. It's gravy, baby. It's all gravy, baby. All right, baby. Let's go fog up my cleary mind. Whatever they say. It's not really clear today, but you know, we gonna fog it up. We gonna get it nice and cloudy fog, baby. Cheers. Oh, shit. That's gravy. Oh, that is definitely Mother Goji Oji baby gravy. Oh. Yes. Yes. Whew. BS, this is the most prepared I've ever been for a video 100. You know, I'm just saying. All right. Cutty cut, slice. We'll be right back. So the first topic we're going to dive into, the best place to start, I know how explaining it to you, is polar patterns. Because you want to know what microphone you're picking for what project, obviously. So the numbers are basically where the microphone would be positioned. And the lines around them is how it picks up the sound, the dynamics that it takes. So omnidirectional, number one, you know, you're going to use that basically just pick up everything around the microphone. And that sounds great before you weigh the cons of it, because when it picks up everything around you, it picks up everything around you, obviously, you know, the good stuff and the bad stuff. Air conditioners, heating units, you know, your fans on your laptop if you're doing gaming. You know, there's other stuff you can do because those problems are going to pop up in almost any pattern that you take. But the amount that it picks up is going to be determined by how your microphone elements pick up. But omnidirectionals are great if, say, you're doing a round table thing or something, you know, where you've got your audience, a presentation or something with the audience spread around, and you want to take questions from the crowd, things like that. In a musical implementation, it's pretty good for sitting your musicians around the microphone and then just recording, because it literally just picks up everything in every direction. And that's probably the most classic form of recording, because before Les Paul invented multi-track recording, you had to get everything in one take, and using multiple microphones, the further and further you go back to audio recording history, is fewer and fewer microphones because of the channel. Getting enough channels to run a whole bunch of microphones is basically what I'm saying. All three of these polar patterns can be used in a mid-side configuration, which we're going to talk about here a little bit later. I've already got that marked on the notepad. But a figure 8 is non-musically is probably going to be best suited when you need to capture two people, say a podcast or an interview with just one microphone, or if you've got multiple people sitting across the tables, maybe two or three microphones to go down the table, because the way that the figure 8 pattern works is it picks up everything in front of it, everything behind it, but tends to reject a bunch of everything that comes from the sides. It's not 100%. The variance of things that will creep in from the sides varies, but it does a pretty good job. But something that we've got to talk about eventually in this video is phantom power, because if you're using something like a condenser microphone that requires phantom power, that is not cross compatible with ribbon microphones and will literally burn your ribbon microphone up. There are some more expensive ribbon mics, I think the Royers and stuff, but then you're getting way beyond the prosumer level when you start talking about those Royer mics and stuff. So I'm going to try to remember to explain phantom power better when we get to talking about the use of the condenser microphones, but don't try to run phantom power on a ribbon microphone. Dangerous. And that's where most of your figure 8 patterns are going to come up, is on a ribbon microphone. There are condensers that will pull off a ribbon 8, and one of the units that I'm getting ready to show you here in a few are also has a ribbon 8. The unit that another one of the units I'm going to show you is has a figure 8 mode on it. Great little microphone, but we'll get to that. But if you're just recording like a single person and you want to try to isolate their voice, which is going to be most use cases scenarios, at least when we're talking about videos like this, podcasts, when you've got multiple people, even as the example that we talked about earlier with people sitting across the table from each other and then just putting the ribbon or a figure 8 mic in the middle of the table, if you've got the money and the inputs and channels to run all of those people individually on their own cardioid pattern, I'm bad at pronouncing things, but the cardioid patterns, you're going to get much better results, because the cardioid patterns are designed specifically for picking up what's right in front of it and then trying to reject everything else. So the cardioid patterns is probably going to be your most use case, or your best use case pattern to use, and it's going to be the most common. 9 times out of 10, when you're buying a condenser microphone, especially like a large diaphragm condenser, or even, the pencil condensers and XYs and mid sides and all of those, you're going to generally have a cardioid pattern. Ribbon microphones tend to, I don't know of any ribbon microphones off the top of my head, so I could be completely wrong, but I don't know of any ribbon microphones that have a cardioid pattern. All of the ribbon microphones that I've personally encountered have a figure 8 pattern. But there are condenser microphones, some really, really good ones. As a matter of fact, I have one that's buried in here somewhere. I've got a lot of my stuff buried right now, but it's a tube condenser, large diaphragm condenser. I think it was the MXL Mogami something, but it was around $400 or $500 or something like that for this microphone. But it came with its own little power and preamp box, and had a tube built inside the microphone. I think it was in the microphone. The tube was either in the microphone or in the power box. I'm not sure which, but I can't say nothing but good things about that microphone. Even had like the little golden grill over the element. It was pretty. It was pretty. But the one I'm going to show you today is not that. The one that I'm going to show you today does not have multiple polar patterns. The one that I'm going to show you today has one polar pattern, but it does have a 20 decibel roll off and some other things that you can also use to help reduce background noise in your videos. But the more isolated the areas you don't want to record, the better results you're going to get if you additionally have to use a pad of, or filter, whatever. And since we're right there talking about that, the microphone that I'm using right now is a Zoom H6. I'm not sure which, what the number or the model of the capsule that I've got on there is, but it's basically, it's the stereo XY. Well, I guess it's XY, so obviously it's stereo. But if you're a beginner watching this, or a novice, whatever, then, all XY mics are going to be stereo because it's literally picking up, in a, like an X pattern. The one that I have is built in a configurable 120, 180 design, so that you can just twist the capsules and either take them from 120 degrees to 180 degrees. It's really, really nice, and as you can hear, it actually sounds pretty nice. The reason that I use an XY rather than just a straight up cardioid, well, an XY is cardioid, but it's it's two microphones though, so it comes out and then has its little spread, and which is also one of the downfalls of using the XY mics. But just real quick, the reason I use this microphone is because I want to be able to pick up this little jerk down here, if I can. I want to be able to pick up this little dude who's, waiting on some TREATS. We'll take a break here in a few minutes and, I'll hook him up. But whenever he talks to me, comes in here and talks to me and stuff, I want to be able to pick up all of that as best as I can. And we did played around a little bit with that ASMR a a little while back, and this microphone actually excelled or did well for the ASMR stuff. But the problem with the XY configuration is that it can phase out a person, your presenter, right here, me, talking directly into the microphone from the stereo signal. But there is a way around that, but it requires adding another microphone, which is where we start to talk about a mid-side technique. Or remember earlier we talked about being able to use any of those three main polar patterns in a mid-side technique. Well, this is what the mid-side technique is for. It's sort of that front channel configuration on your home theater. You know, you got your left, your right, your center channel. And so that's what the mid-side mic is for. And again, you would use that same thought process to determine what type of polar pattern you want to use for your middle microphone for your center channel, because you might want different results depending on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to record with this microphone, or this configuration of microphones, I should say. The same microphone that can do the figure 8 patterns that I'm going to show you is the same microphone that I have that will do the mid-side recording. And it will do mid-side recording in pretty much, I do believe I can use any polar pattern, any of the polar patterns that I want. But what I usually do is I use for that microphone, I use the mid-side technique for the front and simultaneously use the XY configuration in the back to record not really 5.1, 5.0, because it's 5 microphones, 8, so it's 5 channels, for that surround sound effect. Effectively, I was planning to do some, that was the main reason that I bought that microphone. I wanted to do some, and never did, unfortunately, try to do some like relaxation type of videos in surround sound. So basically, I would go out and film like maybe the beach. As a matter of fact, I have the 2 test videos that I did when I bought that stuff on this channel way back before I started doing these regular videos. Way back. It's called Shenandoah River T3I test or something to that effect. But I couldn't upload that example to YouTube in surround, so that part didn't get included, but that was what that test was for. Was to, check out the surround sound. So I wanted to go to like the beach or, random places, quiet places where I could just set the camera down, mount the Zoom H2N on top of it, and then, just step away, let it record for what it was at 12 minutes or something that the T3i would allow, and then maybe do that 2 or 3 more times, maybe, and then make a master video to just loop from there. And, be able to play for several hours, throw a little bit of quiet music on top of it, easy peasy. Well, not really. I mean, it is a lot of work involved, but, that was the plan. But that microphone, for those purposes, does work beautifully. You'll still have to pull something out of that and run a filter on it to get your, your subwoofer channel for a 5.1 setup or beyond. But, that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video. But most of the time, using a straight up mono single channel cardioid pattern in front of your presenter, your narrator, whatever, is the go-to position, or the gorilla position, I guess you could say. But because any ambience and stuff that you're going to add for a master production, if you want stereo effects, it's generally not going to be the dialogue that you want to pan out like that. Again, the main reason I use this is to get the spatial effect for when my little dude speaks up, Yeah, just like that. Come over here and say that again so they can hear you. Yeah, all right, I'll give you one final example of that and then we'll come back. What? 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 Is it treat time? He's like, oh shit, it's treat time. All right, we'll be right back. And I know this is a little bit late for a table of contents, but I didn't think to do this at the beginning of the video. I apologize. But the remaining topics I've got jotted down is next we're going to be talking about gain, limiting, and the newer-ish technology of 32-bit float. And then we're going to talk about the use of isolation pads, shock mounts, reflection filters, and preamps, buying a microphone, basically like a plug-in microphone, like one of those ones that you just like plug into your laptop or your desktop or whatever, or a lavalier mic without its own preamp, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to that. An explanation of using different types of microphones for different purposes, and the pros and cons of the different types. Well, that's kind of the same subject, but the an overview of the microphones that I'm going to show you today, and then we're going to do some tests of each of those microphones. And then I'm going to give my recommendations on some pieces of gear. And spoiler alert, the best budget options are pretty much all going to be from Zoom. And I'm going to try to timestamp everything, down in the description too, That's something kind of new to this channel. And one of the trickiest things for somebody who's just getting into audio mixing and recording is measuring your levels, basically. We start talking about pre-gain and post-gain. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine when people tend to use the pre-gain as a volume knob, essentially. And our former local theater, our only local theater, used to do that shit all the time, like a tour guide at a safari park. But I digress. Pre-gain can be really, really tricky because you want to try to maximize for best effect the levels, the volume that you get from your pre-gain, but you cannot let it clip. You used to be able to create some overdrive, some fuzz. It was kind of cool in specific situations by overdriving, but that doesn't work anymore because almost everything is digital. So all of those preamps, as soon as they start clipping, it's pure garbage. I mean, that is a literal term for it, is instant garbage, because that's what it is. It's just, no. It do not work. It do not compute. And as another YouTuber has said, I apologize for forgetting who it was, but it's better to have a poor quality video with good audio than it is to have a good video with poor audio. Um, because resolution and stuff like that, can be managed. I mean, if you're my age and you remember sitting down watching videos on AOL and 360 resolutions, um, it's fine. It's gravy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I prefer the best resolution I can get, or at least up to what my eyes can perceive. But and we're going to get into that too, as far as audio fidelity goes. But essentially, you want to keep your pre-gain down. But there is a good trick. I use compression to keep that down. Um, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute too. Um, and then what you do is basically, well, I'll just go ahead and show you that now. So as you can see, I've got my gain carefully planned out on both of these channels, and then since this is the main one that I use, I have the compressor and nothing else running on here. And then on my master channel, just nothing but the limiter. And this microphone, because this microphone, in my personal opinion, at least for as far as dialogue is, or my use case, this microphone is perfectly good without much at all in the way of equalization and shaping of any form, really. I mean, if I'm doing a musical thing or something for a effect, that's a different story. But for the most part, when I process my audio tracks, at least for dialogue like this, I don't use anything other than the basic compressor and EQ. But that only goes so far. Remember that, it's unless you got the blessing of the thing that we're going to talk about next, or well, soon, still test your pre-gain and your post-gain. You want all of the dynamics to come out. You don't want the harsh high end to come out, because what we just said about better to have poor video than audio, because bad audio hurts. Bad audio can really hurt, especially when things get really high or clippy on the high end, harsh on the high end. It's like a screeching, and like Freddy Krueger running his fingernails down the chalkboard. It's off-putting for a video. But there is, as I said, a new-ish technology. It's been around for a little bit now, and I have unfortunately not had the pleasure of working with a unit that has this technology yet. But I understand it as best as I can, and have seen the results and everything that people have produced. There are a billion videos, well, not literally a billion, but you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of reviews and people, both written and in the form of YouTube videos, and from places that I trust, with those reviews, that 32-bit float really is a game changer, because what 32-bit float does is essentially you get rid of the pre-gaining altogether. It's just, if it's too high in post and too harsh, it's clipping or whatever, you can literally just bring it down in post and balance all of that out. As a matter of fact, I do believe that most of the units that I would recommend, such as the what's it called, the F2 and the there's another F series from Zoom that has the 32-bit float, and I believe that the new Tascam has the 32-bit float, though that one is $500. But I do believe that those can pass on that through, like a line out kind of thing. Because that's how I'm recording right now. The audio is going straight from the line out on my H6 into my ATEM and my switcher. And the reason that I do that instead of trying to sync it together in post is really just to be one less hassle, one less thing to do. I mean, I would get better audio recording directly to the SD card and then importing that and then syncing the audio to the video in post. And DaVinci makes that a pretty easy process. 100 out of 100, 101 out of 100, or whatever they say. But I'm saying, it's always, like one more thing to do. And when you start getting into editing and post-production stuff, the more steps you get to eliminate, the better. So with 32-bit float, you essentially just grab the waveform, say with your mouse. On my speed editor here in DaVinci, there's actually shortcuts to do that. If I just like hold down the audio level and turn the jog, it will actually move the waveform within the track. So I'm getting the pre-gain, not the, I'm adjusting the pre-gain essentially instead of the post-gain. And so you can effectively, eliminate the problems of, if you're using the classic 24-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, 48-bit, whatever, if your signal is clipping, it's trash, it's garbage, throw it away. There ain't nothing you're going to be able to do with that audio. So 32-bit float is truly a game changer, and I feel perfectly confident in saying that, even being that I have not had the pleasure of using a device with 32-bit float. And this is what we call an isolation pad. This is what you would use on, say, a unit like the Zoom H6, or maybe even something, the $100 H1N, something like that. The advantage of putting it on top of something like this is that this will absorb vibrations from the table. Let's try to give you an example. You hear that picking up through the microphone. All right, now, once again, that's basically all this is. This is, I think, from Oralex, however you pronounce it. But now, let's hear that. I'm dumb. But you can see there's some difference in that. Sometimes depending on how your setup really is, the degree of difference that it makes can vary. But it's always better to use isolation pads when possible than not. And the same thing in post when you're using your studio monitors, because the idea is that you want to get a good flat mix. What I mean is audio frequency. You want your you know, you want your bands to be flat when you're mixing, because if your speakers are coloring the way that the sound, it's probably not going to play back correctly or the same way through another system. As a matter of fact, somewhat famously, I guess, Roger Waters, every time he masters a song in the studio, he'll go out to his car and play it in his car and hear how it sounds there. If he doesn't like it, he'll take it back and go back to the scratch, you know, or whatever you call it. But there's other things you can do in studio too, which is, I guess you can't really see it. Let me try switching to this camera right here, just so I can show you. So you see those two studio monitors right there? Those are my reference, or my side reference, whatever. Excuse my mess. I'm sorry. I'm a slobby. But then what you can't see here behind me is my two JBL monitors, which are much bigger 8-inch woofers. And these actually have I forget what the feature is called, but it's like a measurement microphone that you sit up in the middle of your room, and then run the little program on the speakers so that it automatically tunes your speakers to the room that you're in. It's fucking brilliant. These were expensive, but worth every penny. On condenser microphones, you're going to use something like a shock mount, because, well, I guess I might as well show you that now, because the shock mount is going to, essentially, it's going to help isolate out or eliminate to a degree those handling noises, the vibrations that come up the microphone stand, that, the desk, if you're using like a desktop, whatever, a desk stand. And this one actually happens to be a pretty good shock mount. This microphone is the SE2200 E. There is a version of this, I think, that has multiple polar patterns, but this one isn't it. This one has a roll off and a pad. If you can see those on there. And this is something that I bought for my condenser microphone, because one of the drawbacks to a condenser microphone is the element on it being super, super sensitive. So you're always going to need a pop screen with a, whether you're doing dialogue, singing, anything, you put a pop filter in front of your condenser microphone. And pro tip, there are poor man methods that, don't cost hardly nothing, to some people nothing. And, if you do have to buy either of these things, like literally a metal coat hanger and a pair of pantyhose, it works. It does work. A sock, you could use a sock technically too, although socks might be a little bit might filter a little bit too much to the point of muffling. But I don't know. I haven't tried using a sock. But at any rate, another godsend, especially for recording with condenser microphones, because the elements are so sensitive. They pick up they pick up a lot. They're even at a cardioid pattern, they just pick up everything right there in front of it. It's super, super sensitive. So something good to have is a reflection filter. That's why we use, or you've traditionally used, like vocal booths, where you would have a booth where the vocalist or the narrator or whatever would go into. And so basically you've got this isolated sound that doesn't bounce off of the walls and, yada, yada, yada. And I have a, like one of those cheap, well, not super cheap. It was like a couple $100, but P I was gonna say PCP, PVC vocal booths that come with like a sound blanket and some foam down on there, and then a foamed in top, and then everything was just like, and a sound blanket going around it, and was based all on like PVC pipe, and it works beautifully. And then I also have two reflection filters, that like those ones that you put onto a mic stand, and then the microphone goes like right in front of it. Those work great. Not as good as the vocal booth. This one though works really, really good for what it is. The bad thing about it is that it's heavy, but it's got your pop filter right on the front, and then you stick your microphone right in there, and it's got rubber bands down here to act as a shock mount around your microphone, and then you just close this up, and hi, how you doing? You'll see us using this here in a little bit. You're gonna see us use this. And preamps. We can't not talk about preamps, because a preamp is crucial to the sound that you're going to get from a good microphone, because a good microphone with a shit preamp is still going to produce shit results. Just 100, 100, which is why before we even get to the recommendations and stuff at the end, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, is that don't buy, if you don't already have a preamp, or you're not buying like an audio interface, or an audio interface with its own preamp and everything built in. Don't think that you're just going to go out and buy one of those like little microphones on an 1/8" plug and just plug it straight into your MacBook, or your PC, or your capture card, or whatever, or your phone, because the results that you're going to get are going to go through that. Even if it's a good plug-in microphone, it's going to go through the shit preamp that is on your device, and you're going to get mediocre results from whatever microphone you're using. And even when you start buying actual preamps, or microphones with their own preamps built in, such as the Zoom H6 or the H2N, some preamps are going to be better than others. The quality of preamps, and the low noise floor, and the clean audio that you get varies greatly. Don't underestimate the importance of your preamps. But again, we get back to that point near the beginning, where I said there's never been a more affordable period in time to get good quality audio. Your good, or at least in my opinion, good quality results can be achieved going from around $100 and up. Once you start getting into the territory that I've ended up in at this point in my life, it can be a very expensive hobby. And I know people that are, I've known and seen and know of people that are in way deeper than I've ever dreamt of being. But I'm saying, you can get into your neck on that shit. But in my personal opinion, maybe it's just the AV geek in me or whatever, that it's a hobby worth having. Even if you don't have anybody there to watch it, just in the words of the great Matt Stone and Trey Parker, just make stuff. Just make stuff. Or as Poppy used to like to say, make some video memories. Make some video memories. So let's hold that gravy train for just a second to Rooney, baby, and call it a halftime heat. Cheers. Cheers. And I hope with this video I could be a helping hand. I hope that I could be a helping hand. Because you my little man. Or woman. Or dude. I love you. And I think I forgot to mention too about eliminating background noise. I don't usually, I'm not 100% on all of this because I don't typically try to filter out my background noise too much, at least for these videos. But, you know, you can use, I think it's a high pass filter to try to, you know, curb some of that out of the background. It will create artifacts, and you know it does have its own set of cons. I'm not an expert on the use of that personally, but it is a great tool that's out there, and you know it works to a degree. But you know, try to eliminate background noise again. You know, just to reiterate, try to eliminate background noise pre-production as best as you can first, because the more you reduce it through non-post or production digital methods, you know, just using the right polar patterns, things like that, the more you eliminate unwanted audio that you eliminate through those processes, the less you're going to have to do in post with a high pass filter or a low pass filter or, you know, whatever type of filter that you're using. And so we want to talk about using different microphones for different types of things. Most of my background is in music. I don't have a classically trained background in music. I don't have the super experience and knowledge that a lot of people are going to have. You know, I mean, it's been pretty much a hobby, and music has been, you know, a hobby of mine, or, well, more than hobby, really. I mean, but, you know, not for money, not professionally, but, you know, basically since I was born, you know, sitting in diapers trying to pick out a melody on that piano that we had when I was a baby. As a matter of fact, I've done this a million times before, but you know, put up a picture of me sitting at that piano, because I know I got that picture of me sitting at that piano in my diaper, you know, and I've used everything, or well, not everything, but you know, this was my first audio recorder. Not this actual one. It was this exact same model. I don't know what happened to the one that I had as a kid, but it was, I believe, my 7th birthday present from Poppy. And, you know, I bought this one a few years back at a flea market for, I think it was like $5. I couldn't pass that shit up, you know, because this is what got me going. Essentially, you know, I would take it with me pretty much everywhere. I mean, I'd listen to my little Run DMC tape and shit on here too, but, you know, I'd carry this around the block and tell stories, walk up through the alleyway, and then she farted. You know, not really. I mean, I don't remember what any of those stories I would record telling on this thing was, but you know, so I've recorded with the cheapest of cheap, essentially. You know, this was like 1985 technology, made for kids, but I didn't get my first multi-track unit until I believe it was 1999. And so, you know, I didn't, I wasn't very advanced at that point. Um, so I had I believe it was an Audix microphone. I forget, I don't know what the model number was, but it was, one of those XLR to quarter-inch cables. It was like a $90 microphone or something like that. It was your basic performance dynamic microphone, and that's an important distinction we want to make, which is why I bring up this story of, you know, where I come from audio wise, because um, dynamic mics and condenser mics have two completely different purposes, and with some exceptions, should be used for completely different things. Because one of the cons of the condenser microphone is the sensitivity of the element that's inside it, which makes it extremely prone to feedback as well as damage from the feedback. And whether you're buying $100 condenser microphone or you're buying a $15,000 Super Royal or what's the other one? The big high dollar one, $15,000 microphones and shit, just to ruin it with some feedback. And the same thing with trying to plug in a ribbon microphone with phantom power turned on. But those condenser microphones are going to need the phantom power to operate. Remember that too, different uses for the phantom power. One needs it, the other will get destroyed by it. Dynamic microphones handle that feedback rejection a lot better. The problem that dynamic microphones have is the elements on them are a lot more prone to clipping on the high end. And so, especially when you start to get really loud and stuff, you can, those plosives become impossible to deal with, even with a pop filter. It adds distortion to that. It adds distortion to the high end, and for a recording scenario, that can really come back and bite you in the ass. I mean, you can try to EQ it out, don't get me wrong, but again, it's just like recording with the right polar pattern. You want to use the right type of microphone when you're recording too, because that's less pain in your ass when it comes time for post. And if you're doing it live, if you're doing a live stream, any type of broadcast, that's live. So, you've got to get that ironed out ahead of time. And in the studio, condenser microphones are great. You got to use the headphones for monitoring purposes. So that's the main difference between a use for a condenser microphone and a use for a dynamic microphone, because a condenser microphone would be more recording purposes and dynamic microphones would be more for like a live event where you have to project sound through speakers, through an amplification system, but they're not going to be as clean as a condenser microphone. There are, though, some pretty good recording use cases for dynamic microphones, especially because dynamic microphones tend to have a little bit more punch in the mid-range, that can be useful for, say, miking a guitar cabinet or miking drums. Drum miking, those dynamic mics can really come in handy. You get those ones that like snap on top of the drums and stuff. You can record a set of drums with as little as one microphone. A ribbon microphone works surprisingly, or even a condenser with, a figure eight pattern can work actually pretty well for a set of drums, but you're not going to get as good of results as you're going to get with, say, dynamic clip-ons around your drums, your toms. I said drums, they're all the drums, but you know what I'm saying. The toms and the snare, and then with pencil condensers hanging down as overheads around your cymbals, and then another dynamic down on your kick. And a really good use case for a condenser microphone live would be to, have the performers on the stage with the dynamic microphones and everything, and then, kind of mixed in to a house system that's then recorded, or preferably if you've got a mixer with a multi-track interface, like this one over here. I apologize for all the dirt on it. It's dirty. It's been sitting for a little bit. But this is the QSC Touch Mix 16. So basically, you hook up an SSD to it, and you can take all of your inputs and record each track individually, kind of the same way that my switcher records all of the video channels isolated from each other. It's multi-track recording. Although technically I think it should be called simul-track recording, but it's all gravy. It's all the same in the wash. But then you would use condenser microphones maybe hooked up to the Touch Mix mixer or whatever mixer you're running into, and put them above the crowd and put the post faders all the way down, but still recording the channels so you can access that later in post when you're mixing down and pick up the ambiance of the audience. That is a really, really good use case for condensers live. A ribbon or condenser with a figure eight pattern, I think I might mention this already earlier, is really good in a musical performance. Again, when you've got like say a guitar player right here and a banjo player right here, or a guitar player right here and a singer right here. Whatever your use case is, because it picks up both ways and rejects sound coming from the sides. As a matter of fact, I've recorded I recorded some guys I knew out in county one time that were bluegrass musicians, and basically he just came up into my room up there, and I said, as a matter of fact, it might have been this H2N microphone that I used. It was either this or my MXL ribbon. I can't remember which one it was, but I basically just, they sat in sort of a circle, but not really a circle. It was like three people right here beside each other, and then three people right here, and set the microphone in the middle in a figure eight pattern, and it was just a simple, easy way to record these guys and give them an instant result, because I didn't do any mixing down, any post-production whatsoever, except for transfer the files to the computer and then burn them a CD to take home. Just recorded each performance individually. And we already went over the different use cases for the Omni microphones, and the cardioids are, again, the go-to polar pattern, and you're basically going to get a cardioid, sometimes a super, or I forget what you call it. It's either super or hyper cardioid pattern, that basically gives a much more focused ring of pickup and rejects the sides better. But depending on what you're miking, depends on how you want to use those cardioid elements, because if you're trying to capture an entire scene plus the center, mid-side technique is going to be your absolute best bet. So the thing to do with something like that is the easiest way is this right here, because you can do perfectly good mid-side technique with this. It's there are you can get better quality results with more expensive equipment. But this is a really, really good, simple. We're going to talk more about this here in a little bit, but it's really good at it. And you can actually adjust that mid-side microphone in post. But if you're just trying to capture a single subject, the singer, a presenter, a commentator, narrator, whatever, you just put it right here. You just want a single cardioid condenser microphone because, it's just right there. It's focused, and you're going to reject the sides, which is what you want. For ambiance, like say you're just recording, a mid-side has good advantages too for, like a relaxation video or something like we talked about earlier for picking up a landscape, essentially. But I could see use cases where you might want to just stick to an XY pattern, and an XY pattern is going to be easier if you don't have something like this with a mid-side recording. What I mean is, like, if you're using something like my Zoom H6 here, has much better XY positioning and elements than this thing has. But it doesn't have a mid-side microphone on it, so I could get better pickup from the H6 than I can get from this, but I can pick up the center channel better using this. But if you want to get a little bit more professional and to get the best results you can get, then you're going to want to learn your geometry, to line up to use all three individual microphones and configure the patterns yourself. Because if you've got the money to spend and the time to learn, the math and positioning techniques, you're going to get much better results with, top grade professional elements individually and be able to adjust them yourself. Yeah, obviously. But, if you want to get the best ambiance that you can get in a affordable package, the best quality is going to come from something like this XY capsule with the Zoom H6. And the most affordable good option is going to be what you get with the H2N. I can't say enough good things about either unit. And the one microphone that we are going to be going over, there are some other microphones that we're going to kind of just drop the subject of as we continue, like the handheld dynamic microphones. Again, those great for live performances and stuff, but generally not what we're going to be using in any of these use cases. And and the one that we haven't talked about yet that we've got to talk about is shotgun microphones, because shotgun microphones, just like every other type of microphone, has its pros and its cons. Where the shotgun microphone really shines is for dialogue in a filming situation as an overhead. What I mean is, you know, the classic behind the scenes shot of a TV show or a movie, and you see the guy walking around with the boom pole and then a big narrow microphone attached to it. That's what it is. That's a shotgun microphone attached to a boom pole. And the idea is that you can get a few feet away. You don't want to get as far away as most people think you can get. Um, for that, you're gonna need a lavalier, which we'll get to in a minute too. But um, you know, they're really great for cinema because you can just hold them right above the subjects in a, you know, just out of frame, like right up here. As a matter of fact, I used to film this show when I was in the other room. I used to use the condenser microphone that we're going to show you here in a little bit um, as an overhead, just like we're talking about, you know, and just be right out of frame. The thing that works really nice about that when you're shooting a movie or something like that, we've got two people talking, and you know, one person A is saying their line, and then you right over to person B, but you're filming it all in one shot. You know, you put it on a big boom pole, and then the sound guy, or well, not really the sound guy, the microphone guy, the boom pole guy or gal, you know, can just twist the pole a little bit and aim it toward the other subject, as they say, their line. Um, you know, and boom microphones are, or shotgun microphones, excuse me, are really great for those use cases. Um, when you want to get the subject, you know, more several feet away from wherever your source is or you're recording to, um, you know, and you can't really put a microphone in the shot, or you just don't like the way it looks to have a microphone in the shot, um, you want a lavalier microphone. And the lavaliers usually have a lot of the same problems that um, the handheld dynamics do, in my personal opinion. Um, they can get a little bit harsh on the top end. Um, and again, I mean, you can work some of that out in post. It's just, it's more work. It's more work. But when that's the way you need to film, such as a wedding is a perfect example, a perfect use case example of where a lavalier microphone is a good option, because you know you're going to want to be filming a little ways back and use your optical zoom to get in on the subject so that you're not intrusive to the ceremony, but can still, you know, get up close, if that makes sense. So then for audio, what you do is you put a little lavalier microphone on each person. They just put the transmitter, excuse me, in their pocket, and then you wire the microphone up your shirt or wherever, clip it down, and you know, hide it out of sight, and there's your audio. Um, it's a little bit more complicated than that if you're not using a wireless lavalier, but wireless lavaliers, or wired lavaliers, in my personal opinion, I don't see the point, because if you're putting the subject close enough to reach the sound source, you know, running a wire for more than a few feet um, to reach a subject can be more problematic than it is helpful. And if you're sitting within a few feet, you know, use something different, either an overhead shotgun or um, an XY like I'm using right here, or a mid-side. A mid-side would be perfectly acceptable too. And another microphone I'm going to talk about just briefly, because it's really it falls in the category of the dynamic microphones, but although you can technically get condensers, but the headset microphones, I do not recommend those for video purposes, just because, again, in a live situation, it can be really helpful and have its own use cases. But in a broadcast where you don't need to amplify your own sound through speakers, or you're recording like I'm doing right now, and you don't need to amplify your sound through the speakers, you know, you can get better results than that. I mean, I could see where they could be useful, like, I see where they're useful for gaming and things like that because it's headphones and a microphone right there. But honestly, I much prefer to have like an XY a few feet away from me right here, like this is, and then have, you know, my goody good headphones right here. These headphones are fucking perfect. These headphones are as close to perfect as I've ever had. So there's a couple things that aren't on this table right here that we're going to be going over. And I'll try to figure out, and pull those up here in a minute to show you those two as best as I can. Well, the camera I'm not going to be able to really show you, but this is our condenser microphone. I showed you that earlier, our large element or whatever you want to call it, and the isolation filter. So we're going to test that out as best as we can, except that that's going to go into my PreSonus audio interface and then into the computer and into the ATEM switcher. So yeah, and the tests that we run, which is going to be 99% of the tests that we run, are going to be going through, well, the Zoom H2 is going to have the compressor on top of it, and the master channel will have the limiter over it, and the one that we record individually in my Tascam here is going to be independent from that. But I do believe that this has its own limiter running, but so when we do the test for this, I'm going to use the microphone from the Tascam to run into the Boya system too and show you that one just for comparison, because why not? And the Boya came with its own microphone, but when I use the Boya now, I do just use the Tascam microphone just because it's better. And this is the XY capsule for the Zoom the Zoom Q8, excuse me, which is this camera right here. This is the XY capsule for it. And the beautiful thing about that camera, and one of the reasons why I chose that camera, was because it accepts the same capsules that the Zoom H6 uses, which is what this one is from. This is our shotgun. And it just basically attaches right to the Zoom. And there is a downside to these capsule microphones on the H series recorders, because, or at least the Q8 and the Q8 4K plus the the H5, H6, and H8 accept these capsule microphones. But the problem with these they sound great. They sound great. But the downside to them is that they're fixed onto the camera when you attach them. And especially when you're using a shotgun, you're probably going to want to have your control most of the time on the table, under the desk, or in the production truck, whatever. And if you're doing these home videos, you probably don't have a production truck. I'm just saying, so you're not going to, want your microphone to be stuck there when you're trying to film over top of your subject. However, this is an excellent stereo shotgun microphone. And let's see, I already showed you that. And the H2N, I can't say enough good about this. The 5-channel mode recording I've tried with this, it records it into 2 different tracks. And then you basically stitch those together in post, which is super easy because they're time coded together, or they've got the exact same positioning points when you're loading them up into your DAW, your editing software, whatever. And so you got 2 microphones from one side to pick up the rear, and then you've got 3 microphones from the front side, so you've got your 5-channel surround. Super, super, super useful for those situations. And it does have its own XY configuration. The problem with the XY configuration on here, though, is that it doesn't have as much range as the one on the H6 does. And I don't think it goes to 180 degrees. I think it's stuck at 120. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure. But it does have the added benefit, though, of the mid-side microphone. But it also has its own built-in limiter and effects, even if you want to use those. Hell, I think this thing even has a guitar tuner built into it. I don't use any of that on these, but yeah. And then, so sorry, this is going to be the best that I'm going to really be able to pull this out here. I'm sorry. I tried, you guys. But that goes to, this is the element that came with this camera that we're recording with right here. And there's some pros and cons to this camera. The newer version that they've got out now is a much better value. But there's some pros and cons to it. The biggest pro, though, is that it's basically a decent to pretty good camera with great audio. The Q8 and the Q8N, or the Q8N, or no, the Q8 4K, whatever, all not only will take these capsules, but they also have XLR inputs with available phantom power. So you can use your good quality external microphones and run those through the pretty good through the great preamps on the Q8 and the Q8 4K. There is also a cheaper alternative from Zoom again, for, if you need a camera and good audio and having to save whatever money you can possibly save. But we'll get into that at the recommendations. This is the H6. And, you can see you got your XLRs. I'm not going to give you a full deep dive on this thing right now. And like everything else that I own, I apologize that it's all dirty and shit. That's what it looks like without the dead cat filter on it. That's what it is. XYH6. And it also has a 3.5 millimeter jack if you want to hook up a lavalier or, whatever to this. Get your good preamps on. And so I'm going to do my best to go ahead and give you some sound examples. This part is going to be best if you wear some headphones while you listen to it because, it's just, you're going to hear the differences better with headphones on. And this is the SE2200 whatever condenser microphone going through my little isolation box. Apparently, I did not realize this when I started this, but I should have known this. I can't output both things
to the switcher from HDMI and from the output of my PreSonus at the same time. And also, so we're recording these separate. I'm going to put them together in post. And also, something to keep in mind, like about this isolation cage that I got on this thing, is it's heavy. It is heavy. It is heavy duty. And, so it doesn't work that well with a boom arm and cheap microphone stands like this one. I've got a more heavy duty one in the closet. I just didn't want to have to break it out for the purpose of this video. But now we could show you a little bit of that, gain staging like we was talking about. See, watch what I do here. Now, see, that's a little bit too harsh. So we just want to pull it back down to around there. Maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe right about there. How's that doing, baby? How's that do? Do-do-do-do, ooh-do-do-do, I love you. Mother's cool reptilian arm. It ain't so cold tonight. Little P, that's my dude. Ooh. And this is the microphone from the Tascam connected to the Boya wireless system, the lavalier system. So as you can hear, there's a big difference between the sound of the condenser and the sound of this. But again, this, has its own use cases. And, for what it is, honestly, this isn't that bad. It definitely sounds a lot better than the microphone that came with the Boya, which I'll show you right now. So as you can see, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of, I'm not listening to it in the headphones because of the double effect. And that's the other thing is monitoring wise. You usually want your audio to be coming wired direct to the headphones just because there's a little bit of latency. So if you're the one talking and monitoring the mix, that little bit of latency can be really offsetting and, just produce bad results. And this microphone, it seems to be prone to electrical noise and things like that. I much prefer the microphone from the Tascam, and I'm only going to use these lavalier mics when that use case is what I need. So now we're recording on the Tascam DR10L, and one of the things that actually sold me on this unit is that it will simultaneously record your normal track and then record one, 6 something, 6 decibels or whatever lower, so that if your main recording ends up that it was clipping, there's a backup that's running a little bit softer that you can go back to, kind of a fail safe, if you will. So that is really, really handy. And there are a ton of really great features about this. But the pros and the cons of this unit is that, one, it still has the same problems that other lavalier microphones have. And I do believe that this is an omni pattern, actually. And this is a pretty good use case for an omnidirectional microphone because it's just pinned onto the shirt and pointed up. So, you can have it a little bit away and still pick up the voice pretty well. But in order to run this directly to a switcher or a board the way that you would want to simplify things, it would defeat the purpose of having a wireless lav to begin with. So that is a downfall to an independent. However, you've got your own, it's got its own preamps and everything like we talked about earlier, and pretty decent preamps at that. This was a pretty good buy. This was a pretty good buy for the price. I'm really curious to get my hands on something like the Zoom B2 or the Zoom F2, excuse me. And then there's another unit, I forget what it was called. It's another brand, but it's like $200 more or something, but looks fantastic. It's another lavalier that also records in 32-bit float. I'd be really, really interested to get my hands on some of those. So this is the Zoom H2N. And for comparison's sake, I've got this at the exact same position that the Zoom H6 always sits or normally sits. And, this is just the XY position. Again, I'm not going to bother with the mid side or the 5-channel surround just because I can't really translate that through YouTube anyway. But I think that this microphone now sells for like around $140 or something like that. So for its price, the diversity of capabilities that it has, this is a really, really, really great buy. Good quality for the price. Again, for the price. And this is, there's going to be a Zoom unit that I'm going to recommend at the end, but I'm going to recommend at the end without a bend. But I expect the results from it are going to be about the same as this as far as the XY goes. So the benefits of using this and paying a little bit extra, I'm saying, are probably going to be worth it to a lot of people because you do get that mid side capability and those that surround sound if you choose to use it. It's a really, really great value. So this is the XY mic that came with the Zoom Q8. And again, this camera can also use those same capsules that work with the H6 and the H5. And in my personal opinion, the XY capsules for the Zoom H6 are 1,000 times better than this set of XY capsules. But I paid around, I believe, $400 for this camera that came with this XY microphone. And there's a newer version now, I believe. We'll check that at the end of this video when I do the recommendations. But the updated version has a much better sensor. And for the price, it is, again, like the H2N, it's just an incredible value for what it is. It's great for somebody who needs, and there's a cheaper option I'm going to get to in the recommendations too. Hold on. But I'm saying it's a great option for people that need both a camera and good audio. Because let's be honest, the internal audio that comes from 99.9% of all cameras ever made, even professional studio grade cameras, is shit. I mean, most of the times it's because of the preamps, but, sometimes it's just trash elements. But, regardless, especially for being on a consumer budget range, the quality that you're going to get from the microphones with this camera is phenomenal. And now we're recording with the stereo shotgun microphone. I think it's the SSH6 model. I'm a little bit too close to it now. So, you do want to gain your shotgun microphones a little bit lower than, your XY microphones by just a tad. Because, again, you don't want to clip. You don't want to overgain and go in too hot and then be too harsh on the back end. Unfortunately, we're not using it in this instance in the proper use case, because in this position right here, we're really better off with the XY mics by a ton. But it is a great stereo overhead microphone. It's just, if you're going to use this as an overhead shotgun, the only problem with it, again, is that it's attached directly to the unit. So it's not going to be very easy to change anything on the fly while it's up, mounted, or being held overhead in position, I'm saying. And now we're back on our normal XY microphone for the Zoom H6, and we get to do one of my favorite things to do, or something. I mean, if I can just be 100 with you guys, one of the things I really like to do is the modern form of window shop, web shop, when you ain't got no money. But so all right, we're gonna start with portable recorders and accessories, because that's the most budget end that I'm going to recommend over here in the portable digital recorders section. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to go from low to high, and I'm just going to tell you what I think. The Ceramonics, I have no idea, so I'm not going to recommend them just because I've never used them. I don't know anything about them. The Zoom H1N I haven't used, but I can recommend because the H series has been fantastic. I've heard nothing but good things about the H1. I've used the H2N, the H4N, the H5, and well, I already own the H2N, which obviously it's right here. And I still own and use the H6. I've never had the pleasure of using the H8, but the H series is fucking fantastic. And the F series, be on the lookout for that, because there is 32-bit float in a couple of those units. But we're going to start with the Zoom H1N as a recommendation. If you just want to pick up something simple and cheap that you can sit on a little piece of foam or something, just a couple, 2 or 3 feet, maybe even 4 feet away from you, and pick up just a good little narrow or a good 120-degree soundscape. These are a great way to go, because the H series has good preamps on their XY configurations, and they're going to have a built-in limiter and everything that you really need to get started. And for $100, I don't think you're going to do much better. And there will be like a headphone line out jack that you can use. As a matter of fact, there should be a 3.5 millimeter line in too, if you want to hook up a lavalier microphone or something like that. And you can run a line out to either your laptop, desktop, or your capture card, your ATEM switcher, whatever you're using, good to go. And the Tascam, I've heard a lot of good things about the Tascam, but again, I don't have any use. I've used Tascam products before. Obviously, I've got this Tascam, which is, for what it is pretty good. And so here is that lavalier microphone. And for a lavalier microphone, if you don't have the little bit of extra money that it'll cost to get a like the Zoom F2 that has 32-bit float, then the Tascam DR10L is a good pickup. But it's only, I think, between like 30 and normally it's a couple $100. So normally, I don't know how much cheaper it really is, but the Zoom F1, I don't believe that one has 32-bit float. But I can't really speak for it, but I definitely trust the Zoom F and H series. And yeah, so okay, they've actually got the Zoom F2 on sale. Normally it's $180 for the non-Bluetooth unit, and it's and it does have the 32-bit float technology built into it. So that should be a really good pickup for the price. And here is the H2N. Again, for what it is, for especially for wanting to get that those mid-side recordings and surround sound, for the price, the H2N just can't be topped, really. And yeah, so you can see you can also get these in packages and stuff. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on the packages. I'll just say, usually I like to just buy my accessories separate because, yeah. I've heard really good things about these too, but these don't have like built-in microphones. These are literally just the outboard recorders. And the same with like the P4. And so yeah, here is, if you're gonna get a Zoom F2, this is the one that I would recommend because it's a little bit more money, but it has the Bluetooth, so you can hook it up to your phone and control a lot of the parameters and stuff on it, except that you can't format your card for whatever reason from the app. But in order to use the app with the F2, you will need that Bluetooth in order to use the app. How's that? How's them apples? And then if you can see some of the, we're starting to hit some of the add-ons. This is a add-on capsule for the Zoom H series that provides like spatial audio. I'd really, really love to get one of those. It's $250 for that capsule. And, this isn't the capsule. My bad. This is its own standalone unit. So this is its own built-in recorder. I might have to look into that. So here's the H5. The H5 is basically a slightly stripped-down version of the H6. The one I have is the H6. Here's the the H4N is, honestly, if you're going to start paying up into this price range, the H4N is good. The H4N is good. It's a classic even, but honestly, for that price, I would say to go for the H5 and be compatible with those interchangeable capsules, because you still got, or now maybe the H5 doesn't have the XLRs on the side, but you can, or yeah, that's right, the H5 only has the 2 XLR inputs, but there is another capsule available to give you 2 more XLR inputs that could be used with the H5. And I'm looking for the H6 and that new Tascam. Okay, so here is the H6. So see what I'm saying? Honestly, if you're going to pay $305 for the H4N, then you might as well come down here and pay $320 for the H6. The H6 is a far superior unit to the H4 or the H4N. And yeah, here is the F3. Now this one doesn't have a microphone built into it, but does offer that 32-bit float. This would be a greater expense, because not only would you have to buy this as your preamp and or recording unit, but then you still have to buy a microphone to use with it. And here is the H8. I haven't had the pleasure of using the H8, but it looks really, really cool. It looks really, really cool. It's got a little touchscreen down here and different modes for podcast and music and dialogue and ASMR and a whole bunch of different stuff. It looks really cool. It looks cool. Not as cool as the Tascam, though, if I can find it. Oh, there it is right there. I'm not as proficient with the Tascam brand as audio, or I'm not as versed or you experienced with the Tascam audio recorders as I am the Zoom H series recorders. But the this looks amazing. It's a touchscreen right there. It's got 32-bit float, XLR inputs, different modes for ASMR and everything like the Zoom H8 does. And the thing that it's missing is the interchangeable capsules. But it does have its own set of XY mics that I'm sure are amazing. And, you could potentially use something like this and then use one of those XLR inputs to run a mid-side microphone down underneath of it or something on a separate stand to get that mid-side effect. If you want to go the dialogue, the condenser microphone route, there is also the option of these like broadcaster mics. I forget what I think is a Zoom Shure, or not a Zoom, a Shure SM Beta B or something like that. That's a broadcast mic that a lot of people love, and for broadcast dialogue. I do like the condenser microphones personally, but the broadcaster mics are big but a little less intrusive than a condenser microphone is. A condenser microphone, especially once you throw on the pop filter, that can become a little bit intrusive and eat into your space. And with a condenser microphone, you're also going to need either an audio interface or to get a condenser microphone with its own built-in like preamp USB connected microphone essentially. And sometimes those could give you just as good of results as something like the Audio-Technica AT2020. I choose to show you that one because that is a microphone I can vouch for. I don't have it anymore, but I swear by that microphone for $100, for that price range. That's the go-to microphone right there for $100. At least for large diaphragm condensers, as they go anyway. But, on top of it being intrusive, you're going to need some type of preamp audio interface, and you can get decent to good condenser microphones with their own built-in preamp and audio interface that connect via USB. But most of the time, to get something good that's a USB microphone, you're going to end up paying the same price as you would for something like an Audio-Technica AT2020 and like a cheaper PreSonus audio interface, and get about the same results, really, except that with the separate audio interface and microphone, you're going to have more flexibility and be able to swap out for different microphones if you upgrade later and still use the same interface, or mix up. Maybe most $50 to $100 interfaces are going to have at least 2 inputs, so you could hook up 2 microphones, and you see where I'm going with this. That is the cheapest condenser microphone I'm going to recommend. And this SE, I don't know if they actually still sell this SE mic or not, but let's find the SE microphones real quick. Yeah, I think this is the, or no, this is the one that I have right here, I believe. So, yeah. Mine did come with that pop filter, but I broke the pop filter accidentally. I'm sorry. But, yeah, it's a damn good microphone. And I don't know if they actually carry the MXLs or not to show you those, but we'll check. Okay, so if they've still got it, it's got to be somewhere on here. So no, I guess they don't have the. I guess they don't still make the one that I have because the one that I have was I think $400 or $500. But it's basically it looks a lot like this one, except that it has a. It comes with the shock mount, a tube, and its own separate power box and preamp and everything. It's beautiful, baby. It is fucking beautiful. But like I said, with any of those condenser microphones, you're still going to need an interface. So, all right. So let's just look at the brands that I would recommend because I don't I don't know a lot of these brands, and there's some of them that I just straight up don't trust for it. Actually, no, we're not going to check Avid because a lot of their stuff, at least from the last time I've looked at it, can be real proprietary. So Focusrite is usually pretty good. I say Korg can be okay. We're going to skip M Audio. We'll check Mackie, Modu, MXL. MXL can be really hit or miss sometimes, 100 though. Just, I like to use the PreSonus interfaces because I use or have used so the last time I really did music, Studio One. And I'm pretty deep into the PreSonus Studio One, what do you call it, ecosystem. Yeah, I'm deep into their ecosystem. So, all right. So, with this, this is, about as simple really as you're going to get to have a separate audio interface, because basically what something like this really all it is it's an XLR input with a built-in preamp that you connect via USB to your computer, and so that's your audio interface. I can't vouch for that, but it's probably okay. It's got good reviews on it. So this is the cheapest PreSonus option, and at $80. So we're going to call that the cheapest option just because, like I said, I can't really vouch for the MXL. By name alone, I will vouch for PreSonus. I've been really, really happy with all the PreSonus stuff that I've used. So for a budget entry, if you really want to go the condenser route, here you are for basically $180, not including your XLR cable and your stuff like headphones, a microphone stand, a shock, or I think no, I don't think the Audio Technica comes with the shock mount, but it does come with a mic clip. And yeah, but there's your microphone and your audio interface for $180 for good quality, flat frequency responsive audio. And then, you can always step on up. And here is the next step up. I would probably recommend this more, or this more. I guess that's really the same unit, but it's only $20 difference in price. So, I'd just pay the full $200, and this looks slick. And just to show you, that you're going to get a little bit of connectivity on the back too. See, you got MIDI ins and outs, and there's your main outs for studio monitors. And yeah, I hear you. Sploosh, sploosh to you too. Sploosh, splash. I was taking a bath. Yeah. But honestly, again, personally, I feel like, at least for my use, that a large diaphragm condenser isn't necessarily the best thing for dialogue and like this. It's better quality audio and everything, but there are more hoops to jump through and technicalities and expense, and it's intrusive. That's the biggest thing to me, is that it's intrusive. I mean, if you're not on camera, like if you're doing live streams where you're not on camera, then the intrusiveness of it doesn't really matter all that much, and you will get a better range of frequencies with with something like this, the large diaphragm condenser, than you're going to get with the XY microphone. And for recording vocals for music, like actually recording a song in the studio, yeah, with a few exceptions, namely ribbon exceptions, large diaphragm condenser is the only choice in the studio for vocals. But there are some other options as far as wireless lavaliers go too, that we're going to look at right now, that I've heard. I haven't used myself. I've used the Boya, obviously, and honestly, I don't know if I really recommend the Boya or not, but you can do better for a lavalier. But something like the Rode Wireless Go has its own preamps and everything, but instead of the new version, the Go 2 can record internally, but you hook up your receiver to something like an ATEM switcher or whatever you're recording into, and but it's still got its own preamps built into the transmitter and receivers, so that you don't have to rely on shitty preamps, And the cheapest option there is $200, and it's not a bad option for a lavalier. Again, but sound quality wise, I still feel like a decent XY microphone is going to produce better quality results than lavaliers, in my personal opinion. So the last thing I'm going to show you on here is the Zoom Q8 recorders. Now, this is the one that I have down here, but I'm not going to recommend buying this one just because the new version is going to be a lot better, and it's the exact same price. So buy the Q4, the Q4N 4K, and not the Q8. And here is the cheaper version of that, the little brother, or whatever you want to call it, the Zoom Q2N 4K, which is basically, I think it's got the exact same camera sensor that this has. The big difference is that this one doesn't have any XLR inputs, and it also doesn't work with the interchangeable microphones. It's just there's a line out, or a line in, right here next to the headphone jack, if you want to hook up a lavalier system, or whatever on a 3.5 mil, and then it's got its own built-in XY microphones right there up on the grills. Well, behind the grills. Grill them XYs, baby. and then a little screen on the back. So, there are some, it is a lot more limited than the bigger brother of it. And the price shows that, that is a $220 difference right there. And even though the screen is teeny tiny on this thing, this is one of those things you can like fold up and stick in your pocket. And it does still have a swivel out screen. And I don't know, let's see, I know that they moved around a lot of the ports and stuff on this one. So I'm just looking here to see where they moved the ports to. So there's the back of the camera right there. And where are those XLRs? I know there's some XLR inputs on here. Yeah, okay, there it is. They moved the XLR inputs to the side. On the Q8, the two XLR inputs are on the back of the camera. But yeah, and I've seen some footage from these cameras on YouTube and stuff. There are a ton of reviews of both of these cameras, and I highly recommend checking them out because for the price, when you need video and quality audio, these are a great value. Just understand that as cameras, they do have some limitations. For example, there is no optical zoom on the Q2N nor the Q4 or the Q4 or the Q2 and the Q8, whatever, There's no optical zoom. There is no optical zoom. There is digital zoom. But, the difference between optical zoom and digital zoom is optical zoom is all optics. So, you could go in pretty far as you can without really sacrificing your resolution. Whereas with the digital zoom, the further you zoom in, the more you're going to lose, and the shittier, the noisier, the grosser it's going to look. And both cameras do have a fisheye lens. You can crop those in camera by using your first zoom in setting, which isn't too terribly bad. So at least on the Q8, it's not much worse at all than its normal fished out view. But do be aware of that too, that it is a fisheye lens, a wide angle lens. And since there's no optical zoom, the solutions of that built into the camera do come with sacrifices. And I apologize for making this video so long. I didn't know how to cover everything that I felt like I needed to cover without taking, what's it been, a few hours to do. But I hope that I was able to help some people out there. And thank you, Haley, for bringing this up as a subject to talk about on the live stream. That's where I got the idea, and after talking to you, to get the idea to come do this video. So I hope that I was able to help you out a little bit. I hope that I'm able to help somebody else out, to whoever I can help out, I'm happy to help, baby. So before we go, remember my philosophy on self-improvement. You don't have to be the best at anything. You can't be the best at everything, but you can always be a little bit better than you were the day before. It's, one thing at a time, one step at a time, baby. That's all I'm saying. Let me give you a hand with that. And cheers. Oof. That's pretty gravy. That's pretty gravy, baby. Alright, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Love yous. Bye. Hi. Meow. I do.
I need to put a microphone on you. Yeah, can I clip a little lavalier to you? Yeah, show him a squirrel. Oh, that's a good squirrel, little dude. That was a good squirrel. He's like, I saw you zooming in. Fuck that. I am outta here. Now look over here. Say hi. He's like, fuck you. Fuck you, human. I'll look wherever the fuck I want to look. Hi. Alright? You're my little fool, little dude. How you do? Yeah. How you do? Right? Are you a little dude, little dude? Yeah. Now. Say wherever daddy be, and P's gotta be my buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy. My buddy, Mr. P. That's P. All right. Uh-huh. Yeah, I know, but you still got like 30 more minutes, little dude. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get you synced up to that clock. You've been on that clock for a while. Can't you tell time, fool? Can you not tell time, little dude? It's like, shut up. Give me the snacks and give me the snacks now, Holman. God! Yeah, I see you, little dude. I acknowledge your presence. But you still got like 30 more minutes. 28 minutes. 28 minutes, little dude. You can make it another 28 minutes. I promise. I promise you, little dude. Meow. You wanna come up here? You gonna come up here, little dude? I don't even care if you get fur up on my shirt. You could come sit on my lap, little dude. Come sit on this belly. Yeah, this belly is disappearing, yo. Yeah, I'm saying though, this belly is disappearing. You better come get it before it's gone. Right? This is gonna be just a whole fucking hour-long outtakes reel of little dude. Yeah, right. Do you deserve your own spin-off series, little dude? Yeah, I agree. You're not wrong. You do deserve a spin-off little series. We'll call it Mr. P and the Little Dudes. Yeah, that's a jam, right? Yeah, they'll all sing. Little P, that's my dude. Let me try that over. Little P, that's my dude. No, that's still, I'm quite rude. Yeah, we'll get somebody else to sing the intro. We'll get somebody else to sing the intro. Maybe it'll be Neaglepuff. Right? I'm saying. Oh, you gonna summon a spell back there? Was you gonna summon a demon? You can't see me. He's like, yeah, I can, Human. Like, you right there. You right there, baby. You so big I can't not see you. That's what I'm saying. I mean, little P, that's my dude. There we go. That one's a little bit better. That's my dude. Just like punch in, punch out, right? Classic multi-tracking technique. That's my dude. That's what we call bouncing, little dude. That is what we call bouncing. Right? Bounce that track. Actually, I lie. That is literally called punching in, punching out. But, you know, we bounce it around the track, is what I'm saying. We punch in, punch out, and then bounce that ass. Right? He's a good little PP. You are a good piece of PP. I'll give you that. You are good PP. Man. Yeah. Are you gonna write a book about all this? You need to write down all of this stuff that you're telling me. It'll be your little book. Yeah. And all my lines will literally be translated as blah 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 p. I don't answer bill collectors. You can kiss my dick. See you later, little dude. You still got 23 minutes. And, alright, make me big. Make me big. Make me big, baby. I want to be big. And let's hold that gravy train notion for just a second and put this halftime heat in motion. Let's have a little halftime heat in motion, baby. It's just the motion and the ocean, making that gravy all station. I don't know. Fuck. I snorted.
All right, now we're going to want to put me down in the corner. Down on the corner, yonder by the creek. Drink our bird on yonder by the bush. Gonna have a swim. See you at the holler ball.